They laughed at me when my own son called me a loser in front of everyone, said his mom's new husband was everything I wasn't. What they didn't know was that I was silently watching. Planning. 1 month later, I took everything from him. And I didn't stop there. Before continue, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's free and only way to support us. Thank you. They call me Dave. I'm 58, a little grey on the sides, a little slower than I used to be, but don't let that fool you, I've still got the fire. I live in Ohio, in a quiet neighborhood where the loudest sound is usually someone mowing their lawn or a squirrel knocking over the bird feeder. I used to be the guy who fixed things. Leaky sink? Call Dave. Lawn mower dead? Dave's got it. Car won't start? Dave's already under the hood before you hang up. But that was back when people actually needed me. Or at least made me feel like they did. Then came the divorce. 25 years of marriage, gone like the last slice of pizza at a party. My ex-wife, Karen, yeah, I know, even her name sounds like trouble, said I lacked ambition. That I wasn't the man she thought I'd become. And just like that, she found herself a shiny new upgrade. A tall, tanned, younger man named Blake who drove a Tesla and did yoga on Sundays. I swear, he stretches more than he works. But fine, life moves on. What I didn't expect was my own son turning his back on me too. Ethan. My only kid. I raised him, coached his little league team, stayed up with him during his science fair meltdowns. And now, he stood in the middle of a family barbecue, surrounded by Karen's side of the family, all sipping sparkling water and nibbling on gluten-free mini burgers, and said I was a loser. Said Blake was what a real man looked like. That I should take notes. I didn't speak. I just looked at him. My own flesh and blood. He laughed. They all did. Even Blake, with that dumb perfect jawline. They thought I'd walk away, tail tucked, pride crushed. But I didn't walk away. I took a sip of my watered-down lemonade, smiled, and made a plan. Revenge. Not the dramatic kind with explosions or evil laughs. No. Mine was going to be slow. Surgical. I wasn't going to break Blake. I was going to take everything from him, his pride, his money, his place in their world, and I was going to do it with a smile. I didn't have much. A dusty truck, some tools, and a reputation that had taken a beating. But what I did have was time, patience, and a deep knowledge of how people like Blake work. I've been around long enough to know that shiny doesn't mean strong. Some of the shiniest things crack the easiest. The thing about people like Blake is, they think old folks like me are harmless. We're invisible. They think because I wear sneakers with grass stains and use cash instead of apps, I'm irrelevant. Perfect. Because when someone doesn't see you coming, they don't get a chance to stop you. I spent the next few days doing what they'd never expect. Watching. Listening. Digging. And what I found. Let's just say, Yoga Boy Blake had more skeletons in his closet than a Halloween store. A fake degree, some shady consulting business that ran more on borrowed money than brains, and let's not forget the affair. Yep, even Karen didn't know about that one. Funny how the man who called me a loser had no idea how fast his house of cards was about to fall. But I wasn't ready to strike just yet. I needed it to hurt. So I waited. I smiled. I even complimented Blake's overpriced shoes at the next family dinner. I nodded while he bragged about stock investments and fasting diets. Every time he looked down on me, I stored it like fuel. Ethan barely looked at me anymore. He was busy being mentored by Blake. I guess stock tips and protein powder talk were more interesting than Dad's old stories. But that's okay. I wasn't going to lecture him. I wasn't going to argue. I was just going to show him. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't come with warnings. It shows up, calm and collected. And takes everything. And so it began. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. You ever notice how some people walk like the world owes them applause? That was Blake. Chest out, shades on, even indoors, like he was the love child of Wall Street and a yoga mat. And somehow, everyone bought it. He had Karen wrapped around his protein shake drinking finger. Ethan followed him like a puppy begging for stock tips and designer cologne samples. The rest of the family treated him like he farted success. But I saw through him. You live long enough, you start to recognize patterns. Guys like Blake shine bright real fast, and burn out even faster. I started small. Just casual questions at gatherings. Oh, Blake, what was the name of that tech company you said you sold? Oh, Blake, which college did you graduate from again? He'd laugh it off, give vague answers, then distract everyone by flexing his crypto portfolio or ranting about alpha energy. But every dodge was a clue. Every missing detail, a breadcrumb. So, I followed the trail. I spent late nights on the computer Karen once mocked me for keeping. The one she said was ancient. Guess what? It still worked just fine. And so did my instincts. Took me 1 week to find the cracks. Blake never sold a company. He built a website and sold knockoff kitchen gadgets using fake Amazon reviews. It flopped in 6 months. The only tech he mastered was the selfie timer on his phone. And that Ivy League diploma? Photoshop. The man bought a certificate from some sketchy site that also offered mail-order brides and miracle hair pills. But wait, it gets better. His consulting firm? A shell. A flashy website with buzzwords like synergy and scalable growth, but no actual clients. He owed money. Lots of it. And to people who didn't smile politely like Karen's book club. So I smiled wider. This wasn't just going to be revenge. It was going to be art. I still hadn't told anyone. I played dumb, which wasn't hard considering that's what they all assumed anyway. They thought I was some bitter ex-husband tagging along for free barbecue. And that was perfect. Because while they laughed at my grass-stained shoes, I was already tightening the noose, gathering every document, every lie, every unpaid invoice Blake had shoved under the rug. You know the funny thing? The louder people talk about success, the more scared they usually are. Blake was constantly bragging about investments, using big words he couldn't spell. He wore watches he couldn't afford and leased cars he called assets. But it was all a show. And me. I had something he'd never understand. Grit. I didn't need fancy quotes from self-help books. I had experience, common sense, and enough emotional scars to build a bridge to hell and back. I started making calls. Quietly. A few old buddies owed me favors. I'd helped one of them fix his plumbing in the dead of winter. Another one I helped save his business during COVID by doing free repairs when he was broke. So, I asked for a few introductions. Bankers. Real estate agents. Lawyers. Because here's the thing Blake didn't realize, I may not have had money, but I had people. And in this world, that's sometimes even better. I found out Blake was in deep talks with a startup investor. If the deal went through, he'd actually have real money. He'd be untouchable. The golden boy with the golden deal. Couldn't let that happen. So I made my move. I contacted the investor. Not as Dave the X, no. I had a new name. An alias. Simple email, simple warning. Sent along some documents, proof of the fake degree, the unpaid loans, and a few photos of Blake entering a motel with someone who definitely wasn't Karen. I didn't say a word after that. Just waited. And then, boom. Deal dead. Investor gone. Blake suddenly stopped posting inspirational quotes on LinkedIn. His smile dimmed. And Karen. She started asking questions. Real ones. Oh, but I wasn't done yet. Because revenge isn't just about tearing someone down. It's about rising while they fall. And my rise? Well, that was already in motion. While Blake's Instagram went suspiciously quiet and Karen started blinking more than usual at family dinners, I kept my hands busy. Not with revenge. Well, not directly. I started fixing up my old garage. It had been a mess since the divorce. Dusty, forgotten, like how they treated me. But there's something about sweeping a dirty floor that clears your mind. One push at a time, I was erasing the version of me they'd labeled loser. I still had my old tools, wrenches, drills, a welding kit that hadn't been touched since Ethan was a teenager building a go-kart. I picked them up like I was shaking hands with old friends. And then I had an idea. See, while Blake was busy pretending to be rich, I figured I'd actually become rich. Nothing fancy, just smart. I started fixing things for neighbors again. Not for money at first. Just favors. Word spreads fast in small towns when you fix someone's lawnmower without charging them. A week later, I had more requests than free time. So I did something that would have made Blake laugh. I printed flyers. Actual paper. Posted them at the diner, the library, even the laundromat. Dave fixes it. Simple name. Simple slogan. Honest work. It took off faster than I expected. People were tired of overpriced services and unreliable handymen who ghosted after the quote. I showed up on time, smiled, and actually fixed stuff. One woman even cried when I repaired her kitchen sink for half the cost her last guy quoted her. Said I reminded her of her dad. I gave her a discount and a laugh, told her my dad would have made me fix it for free. The thing is, every screw I tightened, every pipe I sealed, it wasn't just money in my pocket. It was dignity. It was proof that I wasn't done yet. I opened a business account. Got a logo made by a college kid who owed me a favor. Bought a used van and slapped Dave Fixes It on the side with vinyl stickers. Suddenly, I wasn't just a guy who got laughed at over burgers, I was a business owner. And guess who started noticing? Karen. She came by one day under the excuse of checking on Ethan's old stuff in the garage. But I know her look. She was shocked. My place was clean. Tools organized. Business cards stacked near the door. She didn't say much, just looked around like she didn't recognize the man who lived there. That was fine. She wasn't supposed to. Later that week, Ethan called me. Said he heard I was doing pretty well. The hesitation in his voice? That was gold. He wasn't sure whether to be proud or embarrassed. I played it cool. Told him business was growing, and I'd even hired a part-time assistant. What I didn't tell him was that Blake's clients, what few he had started trickling into my world. Some recognized his name from my quiet email campaign. Others just needed someone real. But the best part? I found out Blake had applied for a business loan using Karen's house as collateral. And she didn't know. Yet. Now I had two choices, blow it all up right away, or let it stew a bit longer. Guess which one I picked? I decided to play friendly for a while. Even invited Ethan and Blake over for a beer in the backyard. Blake laughed nervously. Ethan tried to act casual. I could tell they were both wondering how I'd turn my life around so fast. I just smiled. Said something about how it's never too late to rebuild. Meanwhile, Blake's empire, built on lies and yoga stretches, was beginning to shake. But I hadn't taken everything yet. Not even close. The next time I saw Blake, he was wearing a fake smile like it was on clearance. His shirt was wrinkled, hair not quite gelled to perfection, and his handshake weak. I could feel the panic under his skin. He didn't say much, just stood awkwardly near the cooler during Ethan's birthday barbecue. Oh yeah, they still invited me. Guess it was part guilt, part curiosity. I showed up wearing a Dave Fixes-It polo and brought a six-pack of root beer like old times. No one laughed this time. Ethan looked at me like I was some kind of alien. I caught him watching me from the corner of his eye more than once. Maybe trying to figure out when exactly his loser dad became a somebody. But I didn't feed it. I just let the silence speak. Karen. She barely made eye contact. She was starting to notice little things. Blake's phone calls in hushed tones, envelopes hidden behind the blender, overdue bills tucked inside fashion magazines. And then it happened. I got a call from a woman named Lisa. She worked in real estate. Said she had a client named Blake who listed his property as part of a liquidity restructure. Her words, not mine. I nearly spit out my coffee. She wanted to know if I'd be interested in a commercial space downtown, one Blake was quietly trying to get rid of before the loan collectors came knocking. I smiled and said I'd think about it. Then I bought it. Straight cash. The same building Blake had once used as his consulting headquarters was now mine. The man who humiliated me in front of my own blood had just unknowingly handed me the keys to his failure. I moved my business in the very next week. Painted over his logo. Set up a small reception desk. Hired 2 part-timers and offered walk-in repair consultations. Within days, people were flooding in, some just out of curiosity, others bringing busted blenders, leaky faucets, or broken window locks. And Blake? He found out the way karma intended. He walked past the building, probably to peek inside, only to see my name, bold and blue, where his used to be. He didn't come in. Just stood on the sidewalk for a full minute before walking away like a man who left the oven on and couldn't turn back time. I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good. But I wasn't done. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Because while I was patching up appliances, Blake's life was unraveling like a cheap sweater. His business credit, maxed. Karen's savings, quietly drained. And remember that affair I found out about? Let's just say a few anonymous screenshots made their way into Karen's inbox. Boom. That night, Karen showed up at my doorstep. Eyes red, voice shaking. She tried to act tough, asking if I knew anything. I didn't lie, but I didn't confess either. Just offered her a chair and a cup of coffee. Black, just like she used to like it. We didn't talk about Blake. Not directly. But I could tell she was piecing it together. All of it. The man she thought was her upgrade had turned into dead weight, and I was looking more like the original that never needed replacing. The next day, Ethan came by. Alone. No fancy car. No designer jacket. Just jeans and a confused look. He sat on my porch and fiddled with a loose thread on his sleeve. Said he didn't know what to think anymore. That maybe he'd been wrong. That maybe he missed the dad who fixed things, not just toasters, but lives. I didn't say I told you so. I just passed him a root beer and nodded. Because this wasn't about rubbing it in. This was about reminding him, reminding them all, that the man they tried to bury wasn't dead. He was just planting something. And it was finally growing. I always knew the moment would come. The exact second when Blake's perfectly polished world would crumble like a stale cookie. I didn't expect it to happen in front of so many people. But then again, maybe that's what made it perfect. It was a local business expo. Small town thing. Booths, banners, folks selling honey, handmade soap, organic dog biscuits. I had a corner table for Dave Fixes-It. Simple setup, my new assistant, a tool display, and some flyers. Nothing flashy. Blake had a booth too. Or at least he was supposed to. He showed up looking like a man who hadn't slept in 3 days. His usual swagger was gone, replaced with nervous energy and pit stains. He tried setting up his booth, but something was off. Real off. People whispered. I didn't have to ask why. Turns out someone, definitely not me, had printed out a packet. Neatly bound. Dozens of pages outlining every shady thing Blake had ever done. Fake credentials, tax evasion whispers, business fraud. That packet had somehow found its way into the hands of the event organizers. And sponsors. And a few local journalists. Oops. One of the reporters actually walked over to my booth. Smiled, bought a small repair voucher, and casually mentioned, "Crazy about that guy Blake, huh? Thought he was some hotshot." I just shrugged. By noon, Blake's booth was empty. Just a crooked banner swaying in the wind. Karen wasn't with him. Ethan had vanished too. I heard later Blake tried to confront the event director, claimed it was slander. But when someone asked him to show his degree or tax license, he couldn't. His voice cracked. His hands shook. A few people recorded it. It made the local news Facebook page before sunset. And me. I got booked solid for 2 weeks straight. Folks didn't just come for repairs anymore. They came for a story. For the man who'd quietly taken down the fake prince of the town. I didn't brag. I didn't need to. The silence spoke louder than Blake's former bravado ever could. Later that night, I sat on my porch with a beer in hand, watching the sun dip behind the trees. That kind of orange glow that makes you feel like life might actually be fair after all. Then Ethan showed up. Didn't knock. Just sat beside me. He didn't say sorry. Not directly. But his eyes did. He looked tired. Like a kid who had finally seen the monster under the bed wasn't make-believe. He told me Blake was gone. Packed up. Left town. Karen was devastated, mostly because of the money, not the man. Her savings were drained. Credit ruined. Social circle evaporated. Turns out yoga classes don't take IOUs. Ethan stayed quiet for a while after that. Then he asked if he could work with me. Said he wanted to learn how to fix things. Real things. Not just pretend to be important. Not just talk big. He wanted to know how to hold a wrench the right way. How to tell the truth even when it was hard. I didn't answer right away. Because that kind of request deserves weight. Not for me, but for him. It meant swallowing a lot of pride. And for a guy who once called me a loser in front of strangers, this was the closest thing to redemption I'd seen. So I told him to come by Monday morning. Wear boots. He smiled. Weakly. Like a broken bulb flickering back to life. And as he drove away in his beat-up Toyota, I looked up at the stars. Somewhere, somehow, Blake was probably sitting alone, wondering how everything he built had collapsed in a month. And the answer? He built it on lies. Me. I built my comeback on truth, tools, and time. And I wasn't done yet. Ethan showed up that Monday morning. Boots on, hair a mess, no cologne, no confidence, just raw, quiet shame. It sat on his shoulders like a soaked coat. The kid who once idolized a man in a Tesla was now standing in my garage with hands that had never held a hammer. I didn't say much. Just tossed him a pair of gloves and pointed at the busted lawnmower someone had dropped off the night before. He looked at it like it was a spaceship. Good. Let him learn. For the first few days, he struggled. Cut his finger twice, dropped a wrench on his foot once, and nearly stripped a bolt trying to tighten it like YouTube said. But I didn't laugh. I just let him fail in peace. Because sometimes the best lessons aren't spoken. They are felt. He started asking questions. Real ones. Not about money or success or hustle culture. He wanted to know how engines worked. Why some screws were different. What happens when a washer cracks. And slowly, something shifted. He stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes. Stopped brushing his hair with that stupid overstyled swoop. He started showing up early. Started finishing jobs without being asked. Then one day, while we were fixing a leaking pipe in Mrs. Hutchinson's basement, he looked at me and said, "I don't know who I was trying to be." That hit harder than I expected. I didn't answer. But I handed him the wrench and let him tighten the last bolt. He got it right on the first try. Word got out that he was working with me. A few neighbors were surprised. One even asked if I was doing charity work. Nope. This wasn't charity. This was rebuilding. The irony wasn't lost on me. The son who had once called me a loser was now standing next to me at every job site. Watching, learning, sweating. And one afternoon, it happened. Karen pulled up. In her old car. No more luxury lease. Her hair wasn't done. Her nails weren't fresh. She looked like someone who had cried into a pillow more than once in the past week. She walked into the garage, stood there silently while I worked on a dryer. Ethan stepped aside. She asked if we could talk. Alone. I agreed. She sat on the same stool she used to roll her eyes on, back when I spent too much time fixing things that didn't matter. She didn't say sorry. Not directly. But she did something rarer. She admitted she was wrong. She said she believed in the image more than the man. That she chased what looked good on paper, not what was good in life. She said she didn't realize how strong I was. Not until I didn't raise my voice. Not until I didn't fight back. Not until I let the truth speak louder than revenge. I told her I didn't hate her. Because I didn't. Hating someone gives them power. I had already taken that back. She asked if we could ever be friends again. I told her we could be respectful. That was more than fair. When she left, she hugged Ethan. He didn't hug back right away. But he did eventually. And I knew then, whatever bitterness lived between us was softening, like rust loosening under oil. Blake never returned. Rumor had it he moved to Florida under a different name. Got a job selling used cars. Fitting, really. He'd always been better at selling stories than truths. But he wasn't my story anymore. He was just a chapter. One I'd closed. And now, I had new pages to write. With Ethan. With my business. With the man I became after being labeled a failure. Because the truth is, sometimes being called a loser is exactly what you need to start winning. By the third month, things were different. Dave Fixes It wasn't just a local handyman gig anymore. It became a name people trusted. The kind of brand you don't find in strip malls or flashy websites, but the kind you hear about over coffee and eggs at the diner. We got booked solid. 2 weeks out, sometimes 3. I had to hire more help. 2 more guys, both in their 20s, fresh out of trade school. One of them said, "My dad told me you were the guy who fixed everything when he was a kid." That one hit hard. Because somewhere between getting humiliated in front of my son and fixing busted air conditioners, I had rebuilt something more than my business. I had rebuilt my name. Not the one Blake smeared. Not the one Karen rolled her eyes at. The real one. The one people used to speak with respect before the world got loud with filters, fast money, and fake smiles. Ethan was part of that now. Fully. He was my right-hand man. Wore the uniform, knew the tools, even started training the new guys. And when a job went south, like the time we accidentally flooded the back of a nail salon, he took the blame with me. No finger-pointing. No sulking. Just a man learning from mistakes. One evening, we were closing shop when a customer walked in. Middle-aged guy, nice watch, looked stressed. Said he was opening a cafe and needed someone to do all the interior fixes, tables, lighting, even the bathroom plumbing. He said, I asked around, and everyone said the same thing, get Dave. Ethan smiled at me, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man trying to prove something. I felt like a man who already had. We got the cafe job. Spent weeks on it. It became the biggest project we ever did. We finished it just in time for the grand opening. The owner handed me the microphone during the ribbon-cutting ceremony and asked if I'd say a few words. Me. The guy who was once called a loser in public. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I stood there, hands calloused, shirt covered in drywall dust, looking out at a crowd of people, some who once pitied me, others who once ignored me. Now, they were clapping. I didn't give a speech. I just said, thanks for believing in a guy who fixes things. The room laughed, then clapped louder. Karen showed up that day, too. She stayed in the back. Didn't say much. But when I walked past, she gave me the kind of look you don't forget. Not sad. Not jealous. Just quiet. Like someone finally saw clearly for the first time. Blake never reached out. No surprise. People like him don't look back unless they're checking for shadows. But the best part? Ethan started calling me Dad again. Not Dave. Not old man. Just Dad. I didn't ask for it. Didn't expect it. It just happened. One afternoon, he handed me a framed poster. Said he made it for the shop. Black background, bold white letters. Never underestimate the guy who fixes things. I hung it by the door. Every customer sees it when they leave. And maybe that's all the revenge I ever needed. Because revenge that leaves someone broken, that fades. But revenge that rebuilds your life, that becomes your legacy. It was a Friday. Business was booming. The crew had just wrapped up a patio installation, and I was finally putting my feet up with a cold root beer and a rerun of some 90s sitcom no one but me seemed to enjoy. Then came the knock. Not loud. Not urgent. Just unexpected. I opened the door, and there he was. Blake. Same sharp jawline, but now it looked like it was chiseled out of stress. No tan. No smug aura. Just a duffel bag, a cheap button-up shirt with a coffee stain, and a face that looked like it hadn't slept in days. I didn't say a word. Neither did he. We just stood there in silence. It wasn't awkward. It was electric. He finally broke it. Said he needed to talk. Just for 5 minutes. I thought about slamming the door. But instead, I stepped aside and let him in. Not because I forgave him. Not because I wanted to hear some grand apology. But because I wanted to see what rock bottom looked like on a man who once stood above me, laughing. He sat at my kitchen table, looking smaller than I remembered. He didn't even ask for coffee. Just stared at the floor. Then he started talking. Said everything went south after he left. Tried to start something new in Florida, but the past followed him. The degree scandal. The investor fallout. One by one, doors closed. Friends ghosted him. Credit gone. Business trashed. I didn't deny it. He looked me in the eyes for the first time and said he didn't come to beg. Just wanted to understand how I did it. I told him the truth. I didn't destroy him. He did that himself. All I did was remove the masks he wore. All I did was shine a light. The rest, that was on him. Every lie, every fake smile, every time he stepped on someone else to look taller. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just spoke. Because by now, my revenge was complete. Seeing him sitting in the same seat where Karen once told me I was holding her back, that was enough. He asked if I hated him. I told him I didn't. Again, because hate means they still matter. And Blake? He was just a detour. A hard lesson. A reminder that people don't fall because you push them, they fall because they're standing on nothing. He nodded. Quiet. Then he pulled out something from his bag. A small, folded piece of paper. Said everything went south after he left. Tried to start something new in Florida, but the past followed him. The degrees scandal. The investor fallout. One by one, doors closed. Friends ghosted him. Credit gone. Business trashed. I didn't deny it. He looked me in the eyes for the first time and said he didn't come to beg. Just wanted to understand how I did it. I told him the truth. I didn't destroy him. He did that himself. All I did was remove the masks he wore. All I did was shine a light. The rest, that was on him. Every lie, every fake smile, every time he stepped on someone else to look taller. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just spoke. Because by now, my revenge was complete. Seeing him sitting in the same seat where Karen once told me I was holding her back, that was enough. He asked if I hated him. I told him I didn't. Again, because hate means they still matter. And Blake? He was just a detour. A hard lesson. A reminder that people don't fall because you push them, they fall because they're standing on nothing. He nodded. Quiet. Then he pulled out something from his bag. A small, folded piece of paper. It was the deed to his old office building. The one I had already bought months ago. He said he kept it as a reminder of his lowest moment. Said he figured it belonged with me now. I didn't even touch it. He left it on the table. Stood up. Walked to the door. Then paused. He turned around and said the words I never thought I'd hear. Thanks for not becoming me. And just like that, he left. No dramatic exit. No final punch. Just a hollow man walking into a night that didn't wait for him. I stared at that piece of paper for a long time. Then I lit the grill. Called Ethan. Told him to bring burgers and a deck of cards. Because the only thing better than taking your life back is living it so well, even your enemies show up just to understand how you did it. A few days after Blake's visit, things settled. Business kept rolling. Word of mouth was stronger than ever. We were booked through the next month, and I'd even started mentoring a few high school kids after class. Teaching them how to fix door hinges, patch drywall, and more importantly, how to show up on time and tell the truth. It felt good. Not the kind of good that makes you shout. The quiet kind. Like that warm feeling when you wake up and realize nothing hurts. No grudges. No bitterness. Just peace. But peace doesn't mean you stop being surprised. It was a Saturday. Ethan and I were cleaning up after finishing a job. A full basement reno for a retired librarian who paid us in apple pie and a fat check. Ethan was laughing at some joke I made about grout and gremlins when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it ring. But I answered. The voice on the other end was hesitant. Soft. Shaky. It was Karen. Again. She asked if I'd meet her at a local diner. I figured, why not? When I got there, she was already seated. No makeup. No fake smile. Just Karen. The woman I used to love, before things got complicated and colder than the tiles in our old kitchen. She didn't waste time. Said she'd sold her house. Said she was moving out of state. Starting fresh. Alone. Then she handed me a box. Small, square, taped shut. Said Ethan should have it. From his father, she said. Like she was handing over something sacred. I took it without speaking. I could tell she didn't want conversation. She wanted closure. And that was fair. She apologized. A real one this time. Not a sidestep or sugar-coated sentence. Just a quiet, honest sentence about how wrong she had been. About what she'd lost. About who I really was. She said I wasn't just a fixer of things. I was the man who put everything back together, even when no one believed in him. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She gave it to herself. We parted with a nod. No hug. No handshake. Just two people finally seeing each other without all the mess in between. When I got home, I handed the box to Ethan. He sat at the dining table and opened it slowly. Inside was an old photo of us, him, as a kid, sitting on my shoulders during a 4th of July parade. I'd forgotten all about it. Tucked underneath were a few old cards he made me, Father's Day, birthday, one he drew with crayons and wrote "You're my hero," Dad in crooked letters. He sat there, quiet. Didn't cry. Didn't need to. Because that box did what no speech ever could. It reminded him who I was before the noise. Before Blake. Before the lie that I was nothing. He stood up. Walked over. And hugged me. That long, heavy kind of hug that says everything words fail to carry. That night, we didn't talk about revenge. We grilled steaks. Played cards. And laughed so hard I thought my ribs might break. Because in the end, it wasn't about destroying Blake. It was about finding myself again. And letting my son find me too. 6 months had passed. Dave Fixes It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a movement. We had our name on community boards, partnerships with trade schools, and even a slot at the town fair as a featured local success story. Me. The man they once called a failure. Funny how fast the world changes when you stop chasing respect and start building it. Ethan and I ran the shop like a well-oiled machine. He managed the schedules, handled the social media, and could now fix a leaky faucet in under 10 minutes. I caught him humming while working once. That's when I knew he was happy. But it wasn't just about us anymore. We started something called Tools for Teens, a weekend workshop where we taught high school kids how to fix things, speak with confidence, and show up for life. I even gave one of them Blake's old office chair. Didn't tell him the story. Didn't have to. The chair still creaked with secrets. We were repainting the outside of our building when it happened. A delivery guy pulled up with a manila envelope. No return address. I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. A printout of an online article. It was about Blake. Apparently, he had resurfaced under a new name, trying to start a business lifestyle podcast. The article was titled, The Rise and Fall and Odd Rebirth of a Man Who Refused to Stay Down. I chuckled. Turns out, he tried to rebrand himself as a motivational speaker. Claimed he lost everything due to betrayal and was now using his pain to inspire others. The usual snake oil. But the kicker? He quoted me in his story. My line. Word for word. Never underestimate the guy who fixes things. He said it changed him. Said he saw the truth too late, and that the quiet ones often carry the loudest power. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry. Maybe both. I folded the paper, tossed it in a drawer, and went back to painting. Because I had no interest in reliving the past. Not when the present was this good. That night, as we closed the shop, Ethan turned to me and said something I'll never forget. He said, "You didn't just get revenge, Dad. You built something bigger than revenge." He was right. Because revenge fades. But respect, legacy, that sticks. Not in headlines. Not in shoutouts from failed influencers. But in the way people treat you when you walk into a room. In the way your son looks at you when he doesn't need to say sorry anymore, because he's already become better because of you. So now, every morning, I open that garage, flip the sign to open, and step into a life I built from scratch. No fake degrees. No fast money. Just grit. Tools. And the quiet power of showing up, day after day, when no one's watching. They called me a loser once. Now, they call me the guy who fixed everything. Even himself. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's free and only way to support us. Thank you.